Hi, this is PM Sudha, Assistant Professor, Department of English, JJ College of Arts and Science, Pudukottai. This presentation focuses on Queen Anne's reign from Social History of England, Part 2. Introduction. Anne, Queen of Great Britain and Ireland from 1702 to 1714, who was the last Stuart monarch. She wished to rule independently, but her intellectual limitations and chronic ill health caused her to rely heavily on her ministers. Anne was the second daughter of James, Duke of York, King James II, 1685 to 88, and Anne Hyde. Although her father was a Roman Catholic, she was rarely a Protestant at the insistence of her uncle, King Charles II. In 1683, Anne was married to the handsome if uninspiring Prince of George, Denmark, who became her devoted companion. Queen Anne was the last heir of Stuart monarchy. Anne Stuart was an unlikely person to become Queen of England. Her uncle, King Charles II, had married and seemed destined to have a large family after fathering several illegitimate children. But he had no more children, so Anne became Queen of England. During her reign, she would oversee two major events in English history, one domestic and one foreign. The first being the Act of Union that united England and Scotland. The Act of Union was implemented in 1707. A great event of Queen Anne's reign was the union between England and Scotland. Though the two countries had one king since 1603, each country was ruled in its own way and there used to be frequent quarrels. So, with the consent of both countries, the Act of Union was passed in 1707. According to this act, a single Parliament of Great Britain sat at Westminster. Scotland was represented both in the House of Lords and the House of Commons. The second was a major international war, the War of Spanish Succession. Early period of Queen Anne. Anne became queen upon William's death in March 1702. From the first, she was motivated largely by an intense devotion to the Anglican Church. She detested Roman Catholics and dissenters and sympathized with High Church Tories. At the same time, she sought to be free from the domination of the political parties. Her first ministry, though predominantly Tory, was headed by two neutrals, that is, Sidney Godolphin and the Duke of Marlborough. The age of Queen Anne, the period between 1702 to 1714. Queen Anne ruled England from 1702 to 1714. It was a period of great prosperity. Industry, agriculture, and commerce all continued to prosper. This prosperity and content that prevailed all over the country was partly owing to good harvests and cheap food. In the reign of Anne, there was a great exchange of agricultural products between one district and another. Because of this agricultural improvement, the queen was able to send corn abroad on a large scale. Cattle farming was also on its way of progress. This is a portrait of Queen Anne. Queen Anne's period was a golden age in the history of England because it was a period of great prosperity. Only during the last 3 years of her reign were there signs of distress and discontent, and that was chiefly due to the unavoidable war conditions in which the people had to live. Apart from all these conditions, the age of Queen Anne quenched its need in all aspects. There were improvements in agriculture, house building, decoration and furniture, educational system, sports and pastimes, and so on. In agriculture, wheat was the most important article of food. Rye, barley, and oats came next in importance. The coasts of Sussex and Hampshire sent their corn. Cheshire and other western counties sent their cheese by sea to London. Because of the development in agriculture, other industries also integrated in large scale. coffee houses became the center of social activity. The age of Queen Anne was distinguished by all round prosperity in all walks of life, including literature. Joseph Addison wrote his splendid Spectator essays in his inimitable style, which was a fine blend of humor and gentle satire. Alexander Pope, weak in body but brilliant in intellect, wrote the essay on criticism in perfectly formed verses. William Congreve delighted the audience with his witty comedies. Let me see the overview of society in Queen Anne's reign. The social hierarchy consisted of the duke, the squire, the yeoman, the freeholder, and the tenant. There was considerable improvement in the matter of house building and house decoration. In Queen Anne's reign, it was not yet time to appreciate the value of good education. Drunkenness was the acknowledged national vice of Englishmen of all classes. In Queen Anne's reign, women's education was almost neglected and there was no good school for them. In the early part of the 18th century, most of the marriages were arranged by the parents. A very harmful social vice prevalent mostly among gentlemen was dueling. There were certain sports and pastimes which provided relaxation to the people. Sea and river traffic became more popular, especially for heavy goods. Whatever the prosperity gifted to Queen Anne's reign, there was a disintegration for her reign. There is some problems for the decline of Queen Anne's reign. Let me see those problems. From the time of revolution, the court lost its glamour and importance. The ill health of Queen Anne also was partly at least responsible for this. She was an invalid and therefore kept court only on rare occasions. Another reason for the decline of the court was the changing spirit of the time. Queen Anne died in 1714 without leaving any heir to the throne because all her children had died in infancy. There are so many ages in English literature, but the Queen Anne's age is evergreen period in social history of England. Thank you.